Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. Maybe it's my age. Could be getting nostalgic. The TV movies and shows that we're talking about in this video date from the 1970s to the very early 80s, and they're very formative to my TV and movie interests. In fact, only The Six Million Dollar Man, which is my all-time favorite TV show, and which have a connection to these shows I'll mention later, and several low-budget B movies like Ator the Fighting Eagle and Hawk the Slayer are more formative to kind of what I find interesting in movies and TV shows. In the late 1970s, Marvel made its first foray to develop live-action versions of its characters. I'll say right now, and I'll probably say it several more times, these shows and movies have not aged very well, so if you go to watch them, which I recommend you do, don't expect incredible special effects or timeless acting, though you do get excellent stunt work in most of them. In fact, that might be the defining thing about 70s and 80s action TV. The stunt work and fighting choreography kind of carry those shows, and it's the signature. If you go back and think of any of them, whether it's Knight Rider or $6 Million Man or A-Team or Chips or several shows I'll mention here that I haven't mentioned already, that kind of stunt work action is what you think of more than anything, and practical effects. Now, let me first say this is not intended to be an in-depth review of these properties. I'll be discussing it's just a short and sweet take on them to give you an idea what's there. In the 1970s, Stan Lee stopped writing comics full-time for Marvel in 1972. His final written comic book back then was Fantastic Four 125. He assumed the role as publisher for the line and became an executive who helped oversee Marvel's entire line and worked to develop Marvel intellectual property in other media. Interest in live-action superheroes, whether on TV or in the theaters, was burgeoning, in part because of the growing public awareness of more historic characters like Superman, Batman, who had already had who had multiple successful TV outings, like the Superman TV show with George Reeves, and the previous Superman series with Kirk Allen, or the Batman TV show from the 60s with Bruce Ward and Adam, and also there's a Batman serial that's even older than that. So the public kind of seen them in live action. That was through the 60s. And then also there was importation of Japanese products, superhero products like Ultraman. There was an Ultra 7 had been released here in the late 60s, early 70s that some of the public was showing interest in. So the studios were starting to see, wait, these people like this stuff. And of course, the badly dubbed kaiju films we grew up with, the Godzilla and Gamera and whatnot, the public, the younger people, and were starting to like those too. So there's sort of burgeoning interest in that sort of live action, sci-fi, superhero stuff. And then, of course, the big events happened at the end of the 70s, but they were all building up through the 70s to what I'm about to mention. So the interest in fantastical movies exploded in the American audience's awareness in 1977 when a science fiction film made by a producer who had never made anything like this before was released. The film was incomplete and rushed. The studio fully expected it to be a colossal failure, and on May 25th, 1977, Star Wars was released to a limited run of theaters, and boy was everyone surprised, well, everyone except for George Lucas and those who weren't surprised, I guess you would say. Then, in 1978, the greatest superhero movie of all time, and one of the greatest movies of all time, Richard Donner's Superman the movie came out, and the trifecta in 1979 when Star Trek the Motion Picture was released. Stan Lee was always a visionary and saw the efforts that produced these movies making its way through the early to mid-70s. Because production of Star Trek started in 1972, although after they tried to get together for another TV series, but then eventually a movie. Once the Paramount people saw that they were making a Star Wars movie, for example, they wanted to make their own version of it. So Stan wanted to get the Marvel comic heroes into live action. He sold some of the rights to Universal TV, though he maintained control over those properties, unlike the rights he sold directly to CBS for one particular show. So what came out of this? And I'll get right into it now. First up, and the most famous one that everyone probably heard of, was the 1977 TV show The Incredible Hulk. Legendary TV producer Kenneth Johnson, who had already proven his science fiction success with the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, he initially turned down the offer from Universal, who Stan sold the rights to do any of these Marvel shows that Stan was trying to put together. But he later changed his mind and he wanted to do the Hulk. Now, Johnson was a master in making TV shows and realized he had to make several changes for the comic Hulk to transition to the small screen, especially back in the 70s. TV Hulk never talked, a decision that Stan Lee ultimately agreed with after he heard about it, because the comic Hulk always says stuff like Hulk smash or Hulk going to crush you, Hulk crush you, in a guttural sort of monstery way, like Frankenstein's thought to talk in movies. And the TV, they both agreed that it will never work in the TV setting at the time. He scaled it down, less science fiction-y. It was basically a mystery adventure of the week in a conventional world. The only real science fiction element was the Hulk and a couple of the things he encountered along the way. It kind of comes across as like the A-Team TV show did in the 80s, but just with the Hulk, he changed the name of the character from Bruce Banner to David Bruce Banner, probably to honor his son David. Johnson did, and despite some darker rumors as to why they dropped the Bruce, they were said to have dropped the name Bruce, but mostly because Stan Lee had a habit of making his names alliterative. Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Reed Richards, and so on and so forth. And that constantly saying those sort of names on TV, Johnson thought it would wear an audience a little bit. So he wanted to break up the alliteration and with the David. Now, and also the other big change, given that the U.S. and the world was decades away from nuclear testing in their perception-wise, even though the last nuclear tests were conducted, I believe, by the Soviets and the French in the early 70s. I think the U.S. stopped a few years before that. But the comic Hulk got his powers from a test of a gamma bomb, right? Whereas David Banner was a medical researcher, a doctor, an elite doctor researching in nuclear medicine, a cure for a particular disease, and also investigating superhuman strength being like driven by the adrenal glands and so forth. And he got gamma ray exposed there and led to the Hulk, so to speak. There are a couple other changes, but the broader point is he correctly and properly adapted the character to the format. The Incredible Hulk ran for 5 seasons. In the 1990s, there were several reunion films, all of which did pretty well. The most notable of which, The Incredible Hulk Returns, was the first of the 4 of them. The first live-action team-up. That was the first live-action team-up in a movie or TV show for any Marvel heroes. It was a 2-hour movie when Thor made his debut there. This was also supposed to be a pilot for a Thor TV show, but that never went anywhere, despite the 2-hour Hulk movie getting good ratings and having several more of them made. The man who stars the Hulk form of the Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno, made a cameo as a security guard in the Incredible Hulk movie that was the first of the MCU films, and also did the Hulk's vocal effects in the Incredible Hulk, Avengers, and Avengers Age of Ultron. After that, the Hulk became a kind of normal speaker. If you remember the change, he became like Professional Hulk, as we call him in the comics. The person who played the human Hulk, form of the Hulk, Bill Bixby, previously he's famous for My Famous Martian, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and The Magician. He by the time the modern MCU had come out, he had died of I think it was pancreatic cancer, or prostate cancer. It starts with one of the 2 P's, and he died in 1993. It was kind of sick because he was a great actor and a great guy. So the next Marvel product that came up, also in the 1970s, was the Amazing Spider-Man TV show. Now this one kind of sold, even though CBS aired all these products we're telling you about, Universal had the rights to the other 3 I'm talking about, and direct rights, whereas Universal was involved in producing the Amazing Spider-Man TV show. CBS had the controlling rights to it, so they interfered more in it, which I'll get into in a minute. So, despite Spider-Man was very successful in the ratings, the show was expensive to produce and didn't perform well for older audiences, though. That's the target group that CBS from the 70s to the mid 2000s were targeting all of their programming. Okay, so CBS sabotaged. They got a rep for being the old person's network for quite a long time. So CBS sabotaged the show, even though it was the 19th highest rated TV show of the entire year. So there were 18 TV shows that got higher ratings than it, and the premiere of season 1 of The Amazing Spider-Man was CBS's #1 rated TV show. They still wanted to cancel it. They sabotaged it. They kept moving it around to bad time slots every week, so the audience couldn't follow it, but they still did. They interfered and they made the second season. And Stan kind of agreed with this because he thought the first season was a little too childish. but they made the second season, because it was 13 episodes over 2 seasons. They brought in a producer from the $6 Million Man to sort of make the second season a little more serious. And they thought they were sabotaging, but the ratings held true. And ultimately, at the end of that season, they decided to cancel it because they claimed they didn't want to be known as a superhero network, because they did have a lot of superhero program on the Saturday morning block. They had Shazam and Isis, which I'll talk about in another video. They had the Hulk. They had the next 2 products I mentioned as well. And they felt they don't want to become known as a superhero network. They need the older demographic, because I guess it was a marketing thing. I mean, even though more people in the sort of, I guess, 25 to 45 category watch the most TV, or watch the most media now, because not the most TV per se. The people who spend the most on products, which means advertising, are the older populations. Right? So I guess it kind of makes some sense. Interestingly enough, though, and I'll show you here. I should be changing this in the background. So that was the Hulk. That's a Spider-Man TV show. And then, interestingly enough, after CBS canceled this, one of the producers bought the rights from Stan, and after falling, and they were trying to get it going again on another network, but that fell through. But ultimately led to this, which people call Japanese Spider-Man, and Japanese Spider-Man. I wonder if this will play without music.
There have been countless.
Okay, so I'll let that play while I talk. Japanese Spider-Man is kind of infamous for some stuff. Oh, that's Spider-Man Noir. They're not playing Spider-Man. Okay. So, Japanese Spider-Man was kind of a Super Sentai show, kind of like the Power Rangers. Spider-Man had a giant mecha that flew around and turned into a robot. And it's kind of a running joke in the fandom, but that's how that happened, because the American Spider-Man show was canceled. The rights went over to a producer who made the Japanese Spider-Man show. And the CBS show saw Nicholas Hammond as Peter Parker. He's most famous for that. Now, in 1978, the best of all these 1970s Marvel adaptations, both from adherence to the comic book point of view, meaning the truism to how the comic was structured, and honestly, in terms of pure enjoyment, I watched this movie probably every 2 or 3 years, because it's just a fun watch. It was very well done. Okay. Anyway, it was Doctor Strange, but spelled DR, not the full spelling of Doctor like the modern Doctor Strange is. Okay. Now, for those who want to see it, it's out on DVD, but it was recently remastered and released to Blu-ray in timing with the market push all the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness marketing stuff they did. They wanted that out in case fans want to go do nostalgia and watch the old stuff. I bought it as soon as I could. Peter Hooton, who's best known for this role, played Doctor Strange, and he nailed it. He had a sort of smarmy but not over-the-top confidence. Several of the major characters from the comics were there. Wong was played by Clyde Kusatsu. Cleo was played by Anne-Marie Martin. Michael Ansara was the voice of the Ancient One. Doctor Strange comic setting was there with the sort of astral plane and, the beings from other planet, I guess you call it Ditkoisms, the way things looked with the costumes and all that. The unnamed evil entity, who in the main villain of the TV movie was Morgan Le Fay, she served an unnamed demonic entity that was clearly meant to be Dormammu, and clearly be a lead-in had they actually gone a series with it. The only significant change was that Doctor Strange was changed from an older veteran elite surgeon to a younger psychiatric resident. I think they wanted to sort of go for a particular audience when they were doing this. So, and unfortunately, it wasn't picked up, and it didn't get very good ratings, to be honest. Maybe could have come out better. Now, the final 2 movies came out in '79. They were both TV movies. These were all TV movies. Okay. Although I should mention the Spider-Man TV show, when the Japanese picked up that single season and made the Japanese Spider-Man, the same guy got the overseas rights to that Spider-Man show. They edited all those 13 episodes into a bunch of movies and put them in theaters overseas, and it did reasonably well. So much so that they eventually got VHS releases as the movie formats, and that's actually how I first saw that show. Maybe when we got a VCR in the early '80s, I knew about it, but I missed it because I knew about I, you know, and anyway, even though I had missed it, and but I killed myself because it was hard to get because I was a little kid, like 5 years old, and moving all around. But anyway, I found it on VHS. One of the first things I went to, I looked in the gigantic video store. I was like, "Oh, do you have Spider-Man the TV show, the movie TV show?" And the guy knew what I was talking about. He had all that stuff in himself. Anyway, so the final two. Back to my point. 1979. There were two Captain America movies. Captain America and Captain America 2, Death Too Soon. Now, I first became aware of Captain America 2. Like, I knew about the Hulk. I've been watching that for a couple of years. And Doctor Strange I knew about because I just caught it. I just happened to catch it because I recognized the name of Doctor Strange in TV Guide from the comic books, okay? But I became aware of the Captain America 2. I saw 2 before I saw 1 because it was a lead-in to, I was already a Stephen King fan back when they did this. The movie version of Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot is Stephen King's best novel by far. It's his own favorite novel. And the adaptation of Salem's Lot, the original one, although I did a video on Salem's Lot, where I can go over them all in detail, all the adaptations and whatever. But the original one was great. Okay, and it stands the test of time in terms of creepyism and all that. I recommend going to watch that. But anyway, the Captain America 2 was aired. It was a 2-hour movie, but aired 2 1-hour plots as lead-in for other stuff. And I was watching part 2 of Captain America 2, Death Too Soon, and that led into Salem's Lot, and I was like, oh wow, what's this? And then I recognized it from the book, which was on my shelf, which I hadn't read yet, and I watched that and I went and read the book and fell in love with Salem's Lot and Stephen King. I don't read as much of his stuff anymore, but I probably read 20 or 30. I read a lot of his books between then and 2007 or so, and then I thought I kind of just got tired of everything being Dark Tower related. But anyway, sorry. Now let me say, okay, back to Captain America and Captain America 2, Death Too Soon. Okay? I gotta first say these films are of lower functional quality than the other 3 products I mentioned. Okay, and that's saying a lot considering some of the low special effects that Spider-Man suffered with. Even though they paid a lot of money for it, it was one of the most expensive TV shows at the time and got high ratings. They didn't do too well with some of the money. Okay? So, but first about Captain America, these were very earnest films, meaning they didn't try to fool you. It was just basically about a superhero kicking butt, having a little bit of superhero angst. It was straightforward. It was Captain America kicking butt. Okay? Second, it's important for you younger folk who understand who Reb Brown is. And it's hard to convey in another 3 minutes of video time. Reb Brown's retired now, but he was famous or an infamous B-movie actor. Choose whatever you want. You're the Hunter from the Future. A Star Wars knockoff, I think it was called Star Crash. Then one where they used the Battlestar Galactica sets and ripped up Battlestar Galactica to make another Star Wars ripoff. Infamous from a go-kart playing a scene where they played chicken with go-karts that would move very slow but caused a massive explosion. I know it's not in the stupid. It's just when you're going through back in the day, this was one of the things you laughed your butt off at. Okay, so Reb's always fun to watch because he plays himself. He's an over-the-top self-caricature, and it's fun to watch. And it's fun to watch in a sort of Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of way, where you not make jokes along the way. In fact, if you go look up an older movie media reviewer, his name is Spoonie. He used to do up through on the original YouTube and on the old channel Awesome. He did a ton of movie reviews and skits that are funny as heck. And he made a sort of side career of reviewing every single thing Reb Brown did. And they're all funny as hell. Even to this day, I still go back and watch Spoonie's takes on things. He has 2 YouTube channels. One where he just posts a bunch of like live wire gaming things. And another one where his older stuff is posted. I'll put it in the link below. The one where a lot of his old reviews are. They're worth watching. Particularly anything with Reb Brown. Now, I do got to mention, though, Reb was in one A-level film, Uncommon Valor, in 1983. It's kind of there was a thing back then, especially with the Vietnam vets, where some were supposedly still captured in North Vietnam and Cambodia. This film was kind of about that, but it was very good. So Gene Hackman was in it, a couple other big-name actors, and Reb was great in it. Not he played a character named Blaster. That if you ever go see any Reb Brown film besides these Captain America films, Uncommon Valor is worth watching. Anyway, moving on. The premise of the Captain America films was that Reb's dad was a World War II era soldier and later a government spy who was nicknamed Captain America. He wore kind of the WW classic version of the Captain America uniform. But he's kind of a legendary sort of, not everyone was sure he really existed, except the people in on the classified parts. Now, Reb's character, Steve Rogers, was a Marine, and after he left the Marines, he made a living as an artist, and he created a comic character named Captain America in the movie based on his father because he knew the truth of it. Okay? Now, Steve's father was murdered while working on a project with the character I'll mention in a minute, and then they went to kill Steve, and they messed up trying to kill him, just crippled him. Then the character I just mentioned, Dr. Simon Mills, who was a friend of Steve's father, they're working on a program to develop what's called the FLAG formula, which stands for full latent ability gain. It's a TV version of the super soldier formula. And they thought it would work on Steve's dad, but they killed him before they could do it. And he used it on Steve, and it was able to restore him and give him Captain America abilities. So that's the premise there. And then it's pretty much straightforward after that. Captain America gets the bad guys. There's no, they flow fast, straightforward. So availability, Incredible Hulk and Doctor Strange are available via remastered Blu-ray. I just mentioned Doctor Strange was just remastered and re-released. You can stream some of this stuff. I don't recommend streaming. I buy your content. They alter stuff all the time for woke reasons and whatnot, and I won't tolerate that anymore. I want to own I used to be adamant about it, but then watch some stuff on streaming, and I want to own everything. I don't want the chance of my stuff being edited. You can find the two Captain America films on DVD. Have not been remastered or anything yet. The Spider-Man TV show, however, it can be found on YouTube and older VHS. I had my VHS tapes for years. I bought them after I found them in the video store. I wound up buying them. I ripped them. One of the first things I ever ripped when I learned how to rip anything, it was on an old CD-ROM. And they were MPEG 4s or whatever. I bought a ripper card, plugged my barely functional VCR in, and ripped a whole bunch of my older videotapes in. The stuff I wanted to keep, and those are the copies I still have. They're very cruddy looking, although bad because the other quality. Except I just got a VHS, a used VHS of Spider-Man. Remember I said they were released as movies. Okay, I got a movie version of it, so that might be higher quality than my older VHS rips. Sadly, that Spider-Man show has not been put out even on streaming services to watch again. In any case, granted, like I said, that none of them really aged well, and they were TV level programming, but it's back in the day and it was fun. I recommend you watch them. They don't suffer from the story damage a lot of modern films have suffered from wokism and whatnot. Anyway, comment down below if you have any questions for me about this topic or anything else you'd like me to cover. Share your thoughts. Share this video if you enjoyed it. Like if you like. Dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Rebel 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.